Hey, good evening and welcome to the Stokastic.com NFL live before lock Monday night. Well, Monday night action, doubleheader once again. I mean, we're spoiled this year. You got all these different slates. You got these nice 10-game main slates, and then we cap off the week with a 2-game doubleheader. Now, I wish it wasn't a 10 o'clock game. It would have been much more lovely if we had like a 7 and an 8, just run them concurrent for a while. The last one goes a little late, but then I can go to bed at a normal hour. But that's just me, Spags, getting old on the East Coast. What's up, brother?
I'm excited to be here as always again, and I gotta hit. That's now a catchphrase. We're gonna sell some excited to be here shirts coming up on the merch store. It's an interesting slate. I did not expect Emeka Egbuka to play. I had my lineups done before picking up the kid from daycare. Really handcrafted lovingly with the Stokastic sim, a nice array of lineups because I'm doing some mini maxing tonight, doing like a lot of entries more than I normally do in a live before lock show. And no, Egbuka's in. It's like he's the only player who's hurt this year that actually is going to play within that same week. And I don't know if it's a good thing. I don't know if he's going to be limited by a little bit because he does have a history of soft tissue injuries, of hamstring injuries. He won't get played as much as he would have normally. I know that's a fact.
It is interesting, though. Like you have C-Rob saying, do you think Egbuka and Evans are limited tonight? I would assume so. I would assume no, honestly. Why would you play Egbuka? Like he's a prized first-round rookie with a history of these injuries. Why would you play him if he's limited to just like risk re-aggravation? To me, it would actually make less sense to limit. And I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they just don't know what they're doing. But like, wouldn't it seem strange to limit a guy if you got him back 1 week removed from that injury? Like to me, I would think he's okay if he's going to play.
I mean, look, I would certainly say in general with any injury, you're better off if the guy is playing, assuming that they're full go. That said, it was an injury that seemed like it was going to have a longer timeline. The reports where that was going to be the case. I think he's probably healthy enough that they feel confident about his ability to be out there and I guess be full go. And frankly, they need him too. Like that's because of having Godwin be injured again. And obviously Jalen McMillan still, I think, is in a neck brace. The most recent reports were they just don't have the depth of the position. So I guess maybe they didn't feel comfortable with Tez and Cameron Johnson and didn't give him the luxury week off that like literally every other player would get this normal week off. And for them, maybe it's the Detroit game. Maybe it's that they don't like the depth. I don't know, but he's going.
Look, man, I don't know. The last time I bet the unders on a guy coming back, like after a short stint on the IR where they expected 6-7 weeks, come back in 4 instead, hardly practiced that week, didn't matter, was last year Puka Nacua. I remember taking the unders. It was like 42.5. He had 100 in the first quarter. So, it happens. And sometimes like this is one of those situations though, I think you'll agree, where you just have to make a decision on your own. There's nothing necessarily that you and I can say that's going to dictate what decision you make because he might be limited. He might not. He might re-aggravate the injury in the first quarter. There's really no telling. For me, I can tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to play him like nothing ever happened. That's how I'm going to do it. But you got to make the call, man. You got to make the call. Do you go underweight, overweight? You get with the field, you fade him, whatever it may be. Underweight on him, overweight to Evans. Right now, I have a lot of Evans and a decent amount of Egbuka. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I would say sim-wise, Egbuka not coming in a crazy amount. The sim I just ran was 25% to first. Egbuka's coming in at 19%. Fields expected to be at 27%. That feels fair to me. I think I just would err on the side of playing him close to the field if I'm going to be playing him, and I think I will. I think it's just one of those things where I probably wouldn't go nuts on it because I do think there is some amount of downside risk. But the fact that he's been injured and this has been a Q tag all week, the ownership will be a little bit lower than it would have been, even with Mike Evans coming back. Like he probably would have been third of the field owned, 40, somewhere in that range.
So I'm excited to talk about this slate with you for a couple of reasons, because it's like we can all talk about chalk, but I do think there are a couple of guys that stand out a little bit. And I actually want to lead off the show with this, Spags. I want the people in here already who are joining us early to have, when I say the best information, I should say the most information possible, right? Like the most information going into this. Yeah, there's no point of us front loading a show with hey, how do you feel about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs today? It doesn't do much for you. We'll talk about the Detroit secondary, which is absolutely in shambles. We'll get into a lot of other stuff with this late game as well. But I do want to talk about some of the value options before we do. If you guys don't mind, take a single second, atone for your sins this evening. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. And if you hate this show and you hate me and you can't stand Spags, go ahead, hit the thumbs down, but do it twice. Anyway, it's free and we appreciate you for it. All right, so I want to ask you about Jalen Noel. And because I think you're going to see Higgins, right? Like he's going to have some ownership here. Hutchinson. What about Jalen Noel, knowing that, and Greg and I broke it down this morning. I was actually looking forward to asking you about this one. No Christian Kirk today. We were clearly like Nico Collins is Nico Collins, right? He's still the clear number one. But when Kirk missed the first 2 games of the season, it was actually Justin Watson getting a lot of opportunities, running almost 80% of his routes out of the snap. And then Kirk primarily out of the slot, and Kirk primarily a slot guy. Jalen Noel also this year, 70% out of the slot. Is there a possibility here that he's actually the one who benefits the most as far as playing time goes now that Watson's on the IR and Kirk is out, given that he is more of a direct replacement as far as positionality goes?
It's possible. I mean, you could also move Nico in the slot. He's been pretty productive there as well. I mean, Noel did hit before the bye a high in snaps, played 21 snaps. I mean, that was a game where Kirk played 30 plus. So that's something where I agree that he can go up, but my assumption wouldn't be that he becomes a one-to-one replacement. I think they would still work in Hutchinson, would still work in Higgins, then move Nico inside. There's too many ways I think strategically that you can move the guys around that don't involve Noel getting the work. And I also think DFS wise, that ends up being a play that people chase sometimes. I like Jalen Noel is really no reason to chase, but I do think a lot of times that happens. People go like, oh, this guy becomes the one-to-one replacement. He's going to take over all these snaps, all these targets. And like Noel, I think it hit for a big play. I like him on the slate. There's a couple of lineups I built before Igbuka was ruled in that I felt really good about that had the ability to go to Higgins or go to Noel. And I think it's going to happen for some people. I think he'll get played appropriately tonight, but I just wouldn't go crazy on him because I don't think it's a guarantee he gets like bumped up significantly and the other guys don't.
Couldn't agree more. I guess what I'm getting at though is like every one of these Monday night doubleheaders, there is one low-owned guy every time. Like you could go back to all of these and you're like, shit, I missed him. I should have played Rashad White. I should have had, whoever it may be. Every single time we get these doubleheaders. So yeah, I'm not suggesting you ramp him up to like 30%. What I am saying is we have him projected for 2% ownership. So when I look at some of these cheap guys like Jalen Noel, Isaac Tesla, he might get one. If he gets one, it might be enough. It might not. All of these guys, Tez Johnson, probably less appealing than he was earlier in the day when it looked like Igbuka was going to be out. Torrey Horton being another one. That's, it's the Seattle Seahawks are an interesting spot to me because as good at JSN's elite, man, he's one of the best in the league, but he's going to see a decent amount of Derek Stingley Jr. today. With that in mind, does Darnold look to spread the ball around, right? Like, does Cooper Kupp get more opportunities? Do we see guys like Elijah Arroyo who actually can make plays downfield? We saw it a couple Thursdays ago. Barner, Torrey Horton. Do those guys, even against a good Houston defense, potentially become better plays with JSN seeing probably shadow coverage from Stingley tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to be with the data. I mean, frankly, I haven't played as much JSN as the Sims have given me. And really industry-wide, like JSN has been the belle of the ball of all the projections out there since almost like week 2, week 3. His target share was almost unsustainably high then, but now he's holding at 36, 37% per route run. Like those are really good numbers. Those are Puka Nacua level numbers. Those are deliberate attempts to get him fed. And also he's getting 2 deep targets a game, which is like a good downfield workload. So the workload to me actually looks kind of similar, a little more depth, but like similar to what Tyreek had in Miami a couple of years ago when he was actually good. I think that's sort of what, you kind of expect from now JSN week to week. But I agree the matchup, going against Houston does seem a little bit tougher than people might realize, even though the team total's not awful for Seattle. Houston giving up negative 0.15 EPA per drop back, negative 0.17 EPA per pass, one of the lowest catchable ball rates as well. Out of every team in football right now, it's 77%. So they are impeding things. I just feel like for JSN at this point, besides like the one game against Arizona, I think it was, he gets there every time. Like he really seems to find ways to get into space. Even that game where he was a showdown, I believe, and he didn't do that well, but still heated up in the fourth quarter, was really close to making it and paying off relative to salary. That just seems to be the case every week. But if I'm thinking that, and you go through the box scores, you see the same thing. JSN probably just gets overplayed because he's been one of the best receivers in football this year, and I wasn't on that train to start the year.
Yeah, he's amazing, but he's also 55% owned right now. That might be a spot where I look to get different. I think everyone's going to have to, in some form or fashion, try and get a little bit different in some spot. I'm not saying get crazy, but that might be me. I might cap JSN. I haven't decided yet. We still have 45 minutes, 48 minutes, or whatever it is. I may cap him. I'm not fading JSN. That would be dumb. But I probably will have a little bit less of him in the field. Maybe a lot less of him today. SC, I want to know Loughy's tight end whisper play of the day is. Yesterday it was our friend Rondé Gadsden. Today,
that's a big one. That is a big call. I didn't hear that from you.
Yeah, I spent a while on that towards the end of the show. He's good. That's all I was saying. Like, this guy's actually good. So, you saw it come out yesterday. This is a pretty decent play. What do you make of Arroyo, though? Because you have Barner, you have, if you look at the top of some of the exposures you're going to get when you run the Sims, and I can pull it up now at the tight end position. I ran this with a 10,000 player field and 20% to first. I have 3 uniques on here as well, Spags. So at tight end, this is what we have. Laporta, good player, but also you can move the ball around to anybody in Detroit. Dalton Schultz, Cade Otton, AJ Barner, and Elijah Arroyo. So sometimes it kind of feels like all of the negatives that you could heap on Elijah Arroyo, I could also be like, hey, 6% owned, and that means otherwise you're getting 44% Schultz and 30% Cade Otton. And nobody stands out to me as just like a surefire great tight end today. Laporta looks good, but still, Jameson Williams, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's so many mouths to feed in this offense that a good Laporta game is not guaranteed.
Yeah, I think that for Arroyo, he's kind of been going the wrong way compared to a Gadsden, where the workload's been increasing, the snap share, target share, and all of that is kind of steadily uptick. Whereas for Arroyo, he played 25 snaps last week. He's played, mid-30s before that, opened a little bit low at week 1, under 20. But he's hanging around that range. It's not really moving in a direction where I feel like he's a better play than he was. So I think that would be the one thing that would concern me a little bit. But on a slate of the size, I agree. I happen to like Dalton Schultz a little bit more. I think the projection works. I also think Stroud doubles might be one pathway to getting a little bit less owned and still having a decent upside. So I am a little more Schultz pilled today than I would like to be. But I think taking the shot on youth like Barner, we've seen spike in a major way, alongside JSN when the Darnold stacks were coming up on Stokastic and really nowhere else in the industry a couple of weeks ago. I get chasing Barner more than I think Arroyo, but on a slate of the size, I don't know. I really couldn't begrudge you playing whatever, no matter how bad it is. Not that Arroyo's bad, but 2% of him, cool, that's fine. 10% of him, maybe a little bit much, but that's probably fine too.
Yeah, that's where I actually capped him at. I boosted him and I capped him at 10. I think that's reasonable. I don't think that's a chase. It's just I want to have at least some exposure to some of these guys that are not getting any any ownership, because it's especially these games can get weird when you've got a Seattle-Houston game like that, man. Houston's defense is very good. And I don't know. It's funny because, you look at the last time Tampa and Detroit played each other in Detroit. I'd mentioned it this morning. Detroit averaged over 35 points at home last year. The only team that kept them from scoring at home was Tampa. Tampa beat them 2016 in week 2. Do I think that's relevant? No, not necessarily, but Tampa's defense can stand up. They do have a good run defense. They have kind of been a pass funnel the last 2 weeks. What was it? Seattle and Mac Jones almost took them for 300 as well. So yeah, I'm fine with all of these guys. I'm just saying if I could smooth out a position a little bit and get a little bit more of somebody like Arroyo, who actually has had a few end zone targets this season, a couple, I should say, then I would be okay doing it at a position like this where nobody's that good. And like Aquarius says, I think Laporta is the best tight end on the slate. Yeah, he is. He is. No one's going to deny that. But also, if I ended up with 40% Laporta instead of 53, I'm not going to be beating myself up over that either.
No, because it really is if Arroyo is your one thing in a lineup, or maybe one of 2 or 3 things, maybe maximum, that you did to get unique, that's a pretty good lever to get unique. I would say too, in stacks with Darnold, I would think the appeal goes up a little bit more. But yeah, definitely, just anything you do, a lever to create uniqueness that you could do on a slate. The showdowns, it's more prominent, but for 2-gamer as well. If you play 2 Lions, that probably makes you unique on the slate. If you fade one of Gibbs or Amon-Ra St. Brown, that probably makes you unique. If you're just carving away the top 3 tight ends and getting to a situation where a Barner or Arroyo hits, it's probably just not as owned as it could be relative to how often that hits.
All right, so I gave you some of the guys I'm looking at in the cheap range, probably going to get them up to around 10% or so. Now it's your turn. Give me a few guys that maybe you didn't think I was just going to ask you to tell me how good of a play fucking Amon-Ra St. Brown is today. Give me some guys that you think could be viable, and I'll sort it down here by pool ownership, Spags. You got Tesla, you have Tez Johnson, Horton, Arroyo, Xavier Hutchinson, Higgins. Someone asked, who do you think has a bigger game, Higgins, Hutchinson, or Knoll? I don't know. That's why I'm trying to get equal amounts of all of them. Chubb, what do you like? These type of guys down here. You gotta give me one of them, because you know as well as I do, there's always one, man. There's always one on these slates.
So can I give one that's going to be off the beaten path, I think, relative to what you're asking, but I like Bucks D at 2,400. So a nice salary for Bucks D. So and again, I'm not usually a defense touter. I'll take whatever I get normally, and in a lineup, especially a main slate in a showdown, you could quibble a little bit more. They're only getting played 8% in the sim. Fields expect to be at 14, so I don't think it's a pro sim stand here. But what jumps out to me on the slate is that Jared Goff's getting sacked a lot. 7.5% sack rate is higher than everybody else in the slate by a decent clip. I mean, you have Baker, who I feel like in my brain takes a lot of sacks, only a 5.4% rate for him. For the other guys, Stroud taking sacks under 5%. Sam Darnold, 6% and change is a little bit high, but for Jared Goff, he's going against a team that blitzes a third of the time. So I think that you might be able to get away with Jared Goff hits at QB or creates enough production for his guys. Bucks D gets you lower owned. So I could talk some more shitty guys too, but I'll talk shitty defense. I think the Bucks D is kind of a fun one that people won't get to because 30-point total, I get it. But if they get sacks, they get a touchdown, like they could make it pretty easily. You're right.
I mean, look, I have this run right now. I have it set on 3 uniques, and I have 21% Bucks D's bags.
There you go. So when you get the uniques up, you get a little more spread on your ownership, and that's where my brain starts to make more sense, because the original sim with no uniques on it, it's like, no, Bucks D, don't do it.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, this is just a personal thing for me, but if I'm running 150 on a 2-game slate, I absolutely want to get, like, I feel like it's important that I'm smoothing out exposure here.
Yeah. I mean, Tom in his tweet where if you guys haven't seen it, basically outlined his strategy for how he won the showdown the other day with 110K. That was also a spot where he had spread out the exposures more, used 3 uniques in a showdown than 2 in his top 150, and then that allowed him to get Pat Freiermuth, the captain that nobody was on. So yeah, I think I've been trying to be more mindful of that because I haven't used uniques enough, and I think people are maybe a little bit afraid, myself included, of deviating too much from the sim beaten path. But uniques is a way where you're still getting good positive ROI lineups, and clearly people are winning a lot of money with using uniques in different ways.
So here's Tom's post. By the way, CEO of Stokastic. If you're unfamiliar with Tom, maybe he's even in chat, lurking in the shadows right now. Tied for first in the one. This, I promise you guys, this will be beneficial. In the 1.5 mil showdown with the Stokastic projections guru Rich Green. Yeah, our data guy also, Spags, chopped with him for 111K each. Stokastic sims upgrade this offseason, including simulating 50,000 lineups, are paying off. Granted, this was a showdown, but also still important here. And then he gave us what he does: 50,000 lineups to mimic the contest closely, 15% to first to minimize the sim variance, 3 uniques for the first 100 lineups, and then 2 uniques for the next 50. And the reason he's doing that is because if you do 3 uniques for 150, you're probably going to drop into the negative. So then for the next 50, you can do 2 uniques and still stay in the positive. Nerfed both defenses 0.5 point because they're highly variant and notoriously hard to project. I believe, Spags, this was the Cincinnati. Yeah, this was the Cincinnati and Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, which worked out real well to nerf the defenses there in a way that I don't think a lot of people are expecting.
Yeah, for sure. That was a smart move. But yeah, that's one way that you can kind of manipulate the sims without doing anything to mess up what you're like. without going in and just adjusting projections arbitrarily and all of this stuff, you're still getting positively simmed lineups. You're just smoothing out the variance a little bit. So yeah, good call on that. I wanted to show that as well. What do you make of our highest exposed guys today? Rachaad White, Jahmyr Gibbs, JSN, Laporta, St. Brown. Those are the 5 guys. Tom is in chat. There he is. Those are the 5 guys we have north of 50% right now. And then you got a good amount above 40 as well. So another 4 above 40.
Yeah, I think for Rachaad White, and this is a little pet theory of mine, I wonder if he'll be owned as much as he should be because he has the worst DVP matchup on DraftKings app. And the reason I bring this up is that yesterday there was some odd ownership on a few plays that seemed to be just straight like, oh, the DVP said this guy's a good play and a certain amount of the field played it. I don't know if that's the same on a Sunday, main slate as it would be for a Monday 2-gamer. But it makes me wonder if Rachaad White gets played to the full extent because, according to the DraftKings app, he is the 6th worst DVP matchup going against Seattle. Or going against Detroit rather. So I think for Rachaad White, I think people haven't really bought in as much as they have on guys like Rico Dowdle spiking lately. Even the ownership in those games where they were similarly projected or, close enough. The ownership was much higher for Rico. People were really excited to chase him and be there. They were not excited for Rachaad White because of what he did to them last year, but he's been better. And I love Bucky Irving. He's been better in the run game than Bucky Irving this year. He's got a positive EPA, a 0.11 EPA per rush is like pretty good for a guy like Rachaad White, who's been his big issues that he's not very elusive. He's still missing 15% of the tackles he's going against now, which is actually a big improvement for him, being a little bit above league average. So I think Rachaad White's like really good and playing really well and has a good role. And if this game gets out of hand, he'll be in there to pass block. He'll be in there for safety valve, easy PPR points. If the game is running well, he'll probably get some shots at the end zone to rush it in. I think the only ways he doesn't get there is like Baker goes nuts to the pass game or the entire offense craters. But White's role is like really good right now. And I think he's well projected and he should be in like 2/3 of your lineups, maybe more.
All right, let's talk about running backs here, Spags. All right, so you mentioned White. You have Gibbs. Both of these guys, they are right now my 2 highest exposed running backs. And I think they should be. This is one where I'm not going to get ultra weird, although I do think if you were to look into like combo Gibbs and Montgomery in some lineups, that's super viable on a slate like tonight. It actually worked a few weeks ago. Like, what was that, a month ago? I think it was a showdown, right? But it was the Baltimore game.
Yeah, it was Montgomery went like nuts in that one.
That was Baltimore, right?
I believe so.
I think so. Either way, both of these guys can get the job done. I know it's a stout Tampa Bay run defense, but Detroit at home is a different, like they're a different beast, man. They're a scary, scary team to go up against. And then Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. Specs, why does Charbonnet keep eating into Walker's workload to the point where he's actually seeing more work than this guy? He's averaging 2.5 yards per attempt this year. Like he has more work at the goal line inside the 10, yet he's been less effective as Walker there. He's averaging 2 fewer yards, and I'm giving you just basic stats here, but sometimes that matters. 2 fewer yards per attempt than Kenneth Walker, yet still they are intent on or insistent on forcing a split here, if not like a 55-45 split towards Charbonnet. That's why I have some. Not because I want to, but because I have to.
Yeah, I agree. That's one spot that I think people won't want to play today. So I think it's smart to try to attack that, especially if you are, getting a lot of lineups in. With Walker and Charbonnet, the thing initially was that they were splitting drives. It's been the way that a lot of the backfields have been split. Detroit did a similar thing with Gibbs and Montgomery and still does for the most part. That was the thing they talked about as well in Carolina with Rico Dowdle. They started to split drives with him and Chuba Hubbard. And for how it looks for Seattle right now, the workload is pretty similar for these guys, with Walker getting 14.5 intended touches. That includes some of the increased workload when Charbonnet was out, to 13 a game for Charbonnet. I would argue they look really similar overall. Walker's had a little better results, a flat 0 EPA per rush compared to negative 0.12 for Zach Charbonnet. Pass game, it's looking a little bit better, 0.01 EPA per target for Walker compared to 0.4 for Charbonnet. But Charbonnet is a reliable pass protector. They clearly trust him in the goal line a little bit more because he's getting about 4 red zone opportunities a game compared to 2.5 for Walker. So just how they use the guys, I think Charbonnet is the better play. Talent-wise, Walker's the better play. The way that nets out is I play them both equally and hope one of them can hit.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to at this point, right? Mm-hmm. You kind of have to. Of course, you could just take a stand on Walker or Charbonnet, but I'm not sure there's anything behind that. Like, I don't think you have any evidence to suggest that outside of a gut feeling, one of those two guys is much better than the other today.
The high value touches going Charbonnet's way make me think they trust him this much more than Walker. The Walker's explosiveness, like that's something Charbonnet can't replicate. So it ends up to me being net neutral, but like, I think it's just, what do you like? You like the fun guy who could break a play at any moment, or do you like the guy who's going to have a better shot of getting you, a touchdown and a couple PPR points? That's probably Charbonnet.
I like the fun guy.
I do too. Like, you like mushrooms.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was the worst. I put my head under the table for that dad joke. That wasn't even a dad joke. It's a corpse joke.
I'm not. I'm not even sure it made a ton of sense.
No, fungi mushroom. There's a joke.
Oh. And now I'm the moron.
There's a joke about a mushroom walks into a bar. Bartender says, "I can't serve you a drink." Mushroom says, "Why not? I'm a fun guy."
Is that the joke?
That's a joke that I remember my godmother told me when I was a little kid. So that's where my brain went immediately.
That's where it went immediately. Okay, so mine didn't even put the pieces together because it was so outrageous. But yeah, I should hide my head now for not understanding that and putting it together. But yeah, good stuff. Now that I hear it, it's pretty good.
So it gets better the more you sit on it. I've been sitting on it for 40 years.
You finally got to use it.
Yeah.
Where only 2,000 people will ever see it, including Twitter.
Thank God.
All right. So I honestly think the answer is no, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Are there any other running backs we aren't getting exposed? Every single week, Spags, I'll at least throw some. Remember last week, I'm telling you, hey, Tyler Algier could be okay. And then he scored on the first drive. It didn't matter because he didn't have a big game. But when I saw that 20-yard touchdown and I had him in some Bijan lineups, I'm going, all right, I get this thing's got legs. And then it, fizzled out. Although James Cook didn't do much either. But every week I try and provide like something. I know both of us do, as far as, hey, is there a cheap option that may just happen to pop off? I don't really see it. Even the Nick Chubb and Woody Marks, maybe, but it's not like they're sitting down at the minimum 4K.
Yeah, and Woody Marks, I just think gets a little bit overplayed because people think he's really good because he got some crazy outlier results in the first month or so. And again, I say this as a USC alum, where I, as Eric in the chat can point out, and sometimes does, that I do occasionally overrate some USC players. But I also try to keep it honest when guys were not that good. And Woody Marks was not a special player at USC. He was a pure volume back. Now that he's in Houston, he's not getting volume necessarily every week. And yeah, sometimes he could break a play because he's faster than the desecrated corpse of Nick Chubb. But I think he's still a guy that's not special. And I don't think Chubb is special at this stage. That said, sim-wise, didn't get them either. I mean, they're coming up 15% ownership-wise, give or take, for both Chubb and Woody Marks. I got them under 5%. I'm cool with it. I think it's just a matter of trying to get Seattle's backs right, or get, the right combo of Gibbs, Montgomery, Rashad White together. That was my focus for the entries I put in. But certainly, look, if Woody Marks breaks an 80-yard screen again, you'll do great. I don't think that's where you need to be today. I'd rather play the pass game for Houston by a decent margin. Oh,
man, if Woody Marks breaks an 80-yard screen, I'll be in shambles.
I'm going to be so mad because he does it too often. He's not this explosive player. He's just a plotter, but he's doing it. He's done it.
And I mean, really, I'll probably be asleep, so it won't matter. But I'll wake up in shambles for sure. Anyway, yeah, I don't think there's anybody else there. For those of you guys who are unaware, Spags, I assume you were aware of this, but in the event that you weren't, I will let you know the NBA season starts tomorrow.
It does. I mean, I had an inkling that it was coming up.
Oh, you did know? Okay, I don't know.
I'm literally doing live before lock tomorrow.
Making fun guy jokes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just to plug, I'm doing live before lock tomorrow with Greg, so that'll be fun.
I know you knew. I was just hoping you'd go along with it so I could be like, hey, if you're like Spags and you didn't know, we have two amazing promos going on right now for NBA. These are, no matter what your bankroll is, no matter how much you're playing, we've got something for both of you. Here's one. $1 NBA All Access Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah, that is the NBA Sims Max for Tuesday and Wednesday. Not only tomorrow do you have a $750,000 main contest on DraftKings, FanDuel's got $1 million guaranteed overlay contest as well. So FanDuel's putting up some big ones. And then I think you have a 12 gamer for Wednesday. So you're going to have the main slate. You're going to have a big night slate with big payouts. There's no football on either of those days. Amazing time to check it out for $1. Link is in the description. This code ASGA is already preloaded into the link. So you click that. It's in there at checkout. You don't need to type it in. You've got Tuesday and Wednesday for $1 single with that link in the description. Now, if you said, all right, that's cool, but I actually want a month of this or maybe more, got you. 20% off any NBA or all access monthly package. That means if you said I want NBA core or max for the entire month, 20% off. Or you want all access, which means all access core or max for any sport, for every sport, 20% off. And if you're currently a user, if you're already an NFL sub and you want to upgrade because you intend on playing both, just email us at support@stokastic.com and we will get you set up. We will upgrade you to all access and you'll get the 20% off. So two great deals we got going on right now, Spags. Even though you did know the NBA season was tomorrow.
No, you're not catching me off guard. I actually was working on my projections today. I was ready.
There we go. Saved it. Yeah. So links to both of those in the description. Link. The promos are auto loaded. Just jump in. And if you wanted to upgrade, just hit us up over at support. All right. Question for you as far as the wide receivers are concerned here. We'll get to the stacks in a second, but we talked about a lot of these cheap options. Is Tez Johnson someone that is still even remotely potentially on your radar with Ibuka and Mike Evans active tonight? Because that was not expected to be the case when I did it this morning.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder if these guys are priced for, I don't remember, the pricing came out late, so I feel like they might be priced up a little bit for where the assumption was of Ibuka not playing, because Shepard at 4,500, it could be because it's a 2-game slate, feels a little rich. Tez Johnson at 4,200 feels a little rich. That said, I did get Tez Johnson at 13% in the top 150 I ran here. Sterling Shepard, I got at 3, so a fade on Shepard is expected to be about 16% owned, but a play in favor of Tez Johnson. I mean, we saw Tez get a deep ball. My concern is that he's the same thing as Cameron Johnson, not because they share the same last name, but like they're just interchangeable parts that might, be the wide receiver 3 in a play that gets open downfield. But I think they, much like the Houston guys, I think they're all kind of the same, poo-poo platter of options you could choose from that are all cheap. And if they catch a touchdown and it's, 40 plus yards total, they might make a winning lineup and open up everything else. Like, I got Dominic Lovett in the sim, and I barely know who that is. And I really have too much brain power dedicated to who these players are. So to me, any of these guys are playable, but Tez Johnson definitely less playable than he was when Ibuka was supposed to not play.
Yeah. I can't say I'm all that familiar either, to be completely honest with you. All right. Here's a good one for you. Favorite contrarian play overall?
I think for me, just structurally, it would be trying CJ Stroud doubles. I think you can go to him, Nico and Schultz and find some high ROI lineups that look pretty good. I think just trying to get the best parts consolidated, ownership on a few Lions and a few Bucks, and hope you could get that production rolled up into 1 or 2 guys, I think looks really good and a little bit more unique. So hopefully that's contrarian enough, but 10% exposure in the sim, only 15% owned. I just feel like Darnold and Stroud almost like they're barely on the slate with the ownership they have.
Yeah, they are. I'll go with guys like Arroyo and Noel just because they're getting no ownership. So I'm actually okay with something like that. Like I said, I'll probably try and get around 10% each of those guys. I'm fine with that. Perfectly fine with that. Looking at this now, let's see. Yeah, I moved them to get 10% of each, and I feel okay with that. But once you get past that, I don't really think there is much. At tight end, we already broke that down. So let's talk about the builds here and how we kind of stack these teams. How are you doing with your lineups, by the way?
Oh, no, I'm good. Yeah, I got them in the beginning.
Okay. I didn't yet because you streamline your process far better than we're good. We're good. I still got some time. Okay. But the stacks here, Baker and Goff. Goff came up throughout the day in the Sims a lot. Darnold and Stroud, 20 and 18% respectively, slightly above the field there. And when you look at stack exposures, you're going to get a lot of QB plus threes. For those of you guys wondering, it's just how it works. Like on a 2-game slate, if one team goes off, you want to be able to concentrate exposure around that entire team. So you see a lot of that with Goff on a team where he can spread the ball around. Same with Baker Mayfield. A little bit with Darnold and Stroud, but obviously a lot less because we're just getting less exposure to them in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel like they're all worth kind of correlating more. I mean, I'll say for the lineups I selected, again, trying to be inspired by what Tom, the CEO, has done in his Showdown stuff, try to just pare down my filtering a little bit more to get good lineups that hopefully had some more unique stuff. So I ran through the uniques a little bit. I also forced stacks and bringbacks, which you could do by stack type. You just put in QB plus and then also add another filter for opponent. You're going to naturally get a lot of stacks and bringbacks anyway, but I really wanted to make sure to get the most pure, uncut correlation plays you can, because you're very likely to have that kind of outlier game environment today. We've seen it happen enough times where obviously on big slates it happens too, but on small slates where you have one game environment that goes off, and I think the assumption is that it'll be your Detroit, Tampa Bay, your cash game lineups look like Detroit, Tampa Bay game stacks. So I want to get those, but I want to get, an ample variety of those that have different ownership. I also want to get game stacks of Houston and Seattle, even though the total is so much worse, because if that does hit, you have some kind of natural target trees potentially for those teams. I think that that's the way that I want to get unique. So to me, it's just whatever stacking something you want to do. Don't do naked QB. I think people always want to do that. And it's like, I don't want to play a parlay. If I want to do a parlay, I'll use OddsShopper data, do something on the app myself. I'm not going to do it for my DFS lineups personally.
Yeah, that's one of the spots where, like I was saying with JSN, I intend similar to what you're talking about. What I did, I'm still going to get a good amount of him in DFS. I ended up laddering Cooper Kupp receptions in the event that Derek Stingley does, happen to, look, we all know an elite receiver can beat an elite corner. An elite corner can also have a lockdown game against an elite receiver, even somebody like JSN. And by lockdown, I don't mean that JSN finishes with like 1 for 3, like Cortland Sutton did the other day against Sauce. I'm talking about, a 6 for 60 or something, and 12 just doesn't happen to be enough. And potentially you have Darnold look elsewhere. And if that's the case, Spags, I would like to get a little bit of exposure to that. I posted this one over on Tails. AI maps everything. So you can literally just tail all of it. You can tail all right here. And then it'll just pull it up on whatever book you may be on. And you can select which odds are the best. That's simple, right? All of these got a Monday Night Football super boost as well and all this fun stuff. If you guys aren't there yet, make sure to follow all of us and check out the leaderboard as well, where you can discover a ton of new people who are on heaters right now or have the most profit over the last week, or hit the long. If you're a long shot person, here you go. Some monster long shot wins over the last week, or you can pull up this week. We're building something awesome over there, and I'm pretty excited about it. So all these bets are free. And if you really love some of these guys, you can click into them and you can grab their VIP access as well. Like Mitch, who's just been absolutely killing lately, man, almost to 10K followers. And we haven't even been doing it this long. So if you like betting and you want to come check out some free bets and tail some people and have some fun and be a part of a platform that we're continuing to put a lot of resources into, go check that out. All right, let's look at some of these lineups, Spags, because my guess, I'll try and make it so it's visible for everyone. Let me make it a little bigger. There you go. So some of these, I had a feeling. Let me look at exposures for a second. So exposures to tight end, 90, 110, 20. So just looking at this, eyeballing it, you're going to have a lot of 2 tight end lineups today. And I think that makes sense given how cheap they are and how uncertain so many of the cheap wide receivers are on this slate.
Yeah, and I think too the fact that you do want to pay up for, probably a Gibbs is coming into a lot of lineups, paying up for Amon-Ra, paying up for a lot of the other premium options, JSN, I would put right up there. That means that you're getting value more. And frankly, because some of these guys are so far ahead projection wise, in particular, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, JSN, you're going to have a lot of your best projected lineups have those 3 in them. So you take whatever value you can to get, the guys that have a little more floor and theoretically more ceiling. So yeah, I think for, double tight end lineups, I have no issue at all. I know a good mix of Cade Otton, Dalton Schultz stuff, Laporta coming in 2 tight ends a little bit as well. Sam Laporta, AJ Barner right now is my top ROI lineup. Laporta and Schultz behind that. Laporta and David Montgomery coming up a little. Laporta and Schultz again. There's actually a lot of Laporta and Schultz. They're going to come up different mixes here. If you want to get unique, only play 1 tight end, but I think they seem to be a necessary part of the slate based on the sim is running.
Feels like you kind of have to do it. Yeah. I'm okay with it. Because outside of that, who are you really going to? Other sketchy guys. At least a lot of these tight ends who are discounted are going to be in. They're absolutely going to be on the field. Like Barner's getting he's playing a lot of snaps, man. It's not like I don't anticipate another 3 for 70 in a score game or whatever it was. Like he is absolutely getting on the field, and I guess sometimes that's really all you can ask for in these spots.
Yeah, and he can block, and that's clearly a thing that's keeping him safely ahead of Arroyo for now. Obviously, Arroyo could still spike in the pass game, pretty much whenever. But he's getting routes because of the fact he could be out there and kind of be present an ambiguous look to. They don't know if they're going to run or throw. Whereas if they bring in Arroyo, it's like, it's pretty obvious as a passing situation. So the fact he's playing 47 snaps per game, and he's playing technically more per game than JSN and Cup. That might include JSN going to the sideline a little bit. But he's out there a bunch, and just being on the field, that's half the battle for any sort of projection sport you're going to try to play.
Do you think if you were to go to one of Otton, Barner, you already said Schultz, but between Otton and Barner, is Otton still the guy just because you're talking a 53-point total here?
That's tough because Otton has to be, a substantial downtick from not having Egbuka in. And projection-wise, it didn't move because I actually have the old Stokastic projection. Otton was projected for 11 before Egbuka got rolled back in. Now he's down to 8.59, so that's a pretty big drop-off. He's still perfectly fine in range, a little bit lower than Dalton Schultz, who is substantially lower than Sam Laporta. And then Otton's ahead of Barner by 1.5 points, a little bit more than that. I think Otton's a tough play to go to now because he seems a little bit expensive too for the potential to not have Egbuka play, and now Igbuka's playing. So yeah, to me, Schultz is still my favorite, but Barner, I think he's more interesting play with these guys being at similar ownership. That said, sim-wise, Cade Otton came up 37%, Fields at 22%, so it's still a bigger stand in favor of Laporta, bigger stand in favor of Schultz, but Otton seems to be very clearly tight end 3, with Barner being about a third is owned on the top 150.
Friend of the show, Goody, tight end and flex on a 2-game slate, not liking it. Thoughts? DK 20 max. Yeah, I guess the question then becomes, Goody, what are you looking to do elsewhere? Are you looking to play the cheap Houston quarterbacks? That could be, I suppose that could be viable here. Or it's not wide receivers, sorry, the cheap Houston wide receivers, like Tesla in there. I don't know. What are the real alternatives, Spags, to not 2 tight end in every lineup? Obviously, you could also just kind of go a little bit more balanced. Maybe you don't have as many of the top tier guys, and you just go balanced, and you end up with like a David Montgomery or a Kenneth Walker in the flex as well. There are ways to do it for sure.
Yeah, and I would say too, it's one of those things where if you're not focused on a results-based process, like the idea of when you see a lot of lineups have 2 tight ends in it and you just want to play a 20 max, you're willing to lose your money, but try to play game theory kind of optimal, I guess, or more optimal. You could just fade the second tight end if you want and play only receivers in the flex and roll the dice. Obviously, you need to keep in mind that the reason the sim is giving you 2 tight ends is that they project well. The value they create opens up another spot for a higher dollar player to get in. But if you hit on a receiver who catches that 50-yard touchdown, they could beat out a tight end going 4 for 20 kind of thing. So I get the logic. I just think it comes down to do you want to lose your money by ignoring what the sim gives entirely? You could try to do it, but I would still try to play sim friendly lineups then that just have max 1 of Laporta, Schultz, Otton, Barner, Arroyo.
Right, I'm with you. That's probably how I take it as well. Jacob just downloaded Tails. Haven't gotten much into it, but enjoy what I'm seeing already. Awesome, man. Yeah, there's a Tails app. That's what I use to place my bets on there and to tail bets. And if you guys don't mind, Jacob, you included, if you like it, leave a rating and a review. It takes a couple minutes, but we appreciate it greatly. It goes a really long way. And, without getting quality ratings and reviews, and I do think the app is great. It's really getting good. Without that on in the App Store, it's an uphill climb. So if you ever, felt compelled to help us find some success with that Tails app, which we already are, but that would be massively helpful. So yeah, appreciate you. All right. Other spots before we get to some more questions here. Are there any guys we haven't discussed yet? This slate oddly feels more cut and dry, like on the surface, than a typical showdown slate.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about the dumpiest dumpster dives kind of players. Like George Holani does come up a little bit in the sim, 0.7%. I don't know how you would possibly play the third RB in a backfield we already don't really get what the top two RBs are doing. But I think for Holani, if you're playing 150, I would get how he comes up a little. Isaac Tesla has gotten some end zone targets, can spike a little bit. I think that he's still a guy that you can point to and hope that there are bigger days coming. Snap count keeps going up for him. He has run really hot with a 1.1 EPA per target. You can't keep that going for a receiver that actually gets any sort of volume. But he does get 0.3 red zone targets a game. That's at least something to point to. And Torrey Horton's probably the most live one. I think it'll be if you don't play JSN, your amount of Cooper Kupp probably goes up a little bit. If you don't play Cooper Kupp, I don't think you get Torrey Horton very much. But Horton we have seen have some return upside. We also have seen him get some amount of red zone work as well. 0.3 red zone targets a game, 0.2 of which are inside the 10-yard line, and he is a big body dude and go up and get it. I think Horton is another one of these cheap guys. Don't think he's more better or more special than your Jalen Noels, your Jaden Higgins is really your Xavier Hutchinson's even. Those are all like the same dude to me, or how I would treat them on the slate. But just to get unique, I feel like you should be playing probably all of them if you're doing 150, but if you're doing 20, you maybe should be playing at least a few of them.
For what it's worth, I'm doing exactly that. There's no doubt about it. Try and get to a little Horton. Do I love the matchup? Nope, don't love the matchup, but there's only a handful of matchups on this slate anyway. So what does it really matter at this point? So that's where I'm at, Spags. I'm going to try and get to more of Horton for sure. And then I'm going to and by more of, I don't mean a lot. I mean, if I could get, what do you think? Like 10% of Horton or something like that?
I mean, Fields expected to be at 6. You get to 10. I think that's more than enough. And really, I think that's, I know Loughy plays it the same way that I do. You got to just be willing to lose that money. Like if Horton doesn't hit, whatever. But if he does hit, that lineup is now unique, and now you hopefully have really good pieces around it. And that's the way unfortunately, I think you have to play these slates, especially in 2025. Just got to be willing to lose some of the money on these guys that don't seem very valuable projection wise.
There's also the possibility too that like one of these value guys does just happen to have a good game, but it doesn't matter because it's not good enough. Like he has 13 or something, but it doesn't matter because Detroit and Tampa goes insane. So it's like, oh, cool, I got a 12 from him or whatever. But what difference did it make? So I think that's always in play. Algier was a good example. Like you didn't even need him last week on that doubleheader, even though he scored early.
Wouldn't he have beat out James Cook if you had played Algier over James Cook?
But I don't think he was in he wasn't in the winning lotto.
Well, yeah, I agree. He wasn't in the winning lineup, but I think if you had done that, which shows like you sometimes don't need to do the 4D chess, but if you had gotten that right, I think he actually would have won you more money. But you'd have to leave like what 4K on the table, 3K on the table.
Yeah, I'm with you. I did some of it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But you also needed him with Bijan. Like you couldn't do it without Bijan because Robinson had that that was like the 250, yards for Bijan or something like that. So
it is just show off nonsense. Bijan's save some for Tyler Algier is what we say.
Yeah, it would have been nice, huh? But anyway, I look at this and I'm just saying my top guys right now at wide receiver. I'll go position by position. Amon-Ra St. Brown for me is my number one personally over JSN. I know the Sims like JSN more, understood. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown in this spot. Number 2, Mike Evans. I like him a lot. I'll go JSN 3 here, and then Nico and Jameson Williams along with Ibuka. I still like Ibuka, but I do like Mike Evans in this spot at $500 cheaper. Spags, I'm going to ask you the same question coming up. At running back, it is somewhat in this order. It's basically Rachaad White and Gibbs neck and neck for me, given that there's a big price difference. And then Montgomery, then I'm getting into that next game and just taking what I get. At tight end, yep, Laporta number 1, but I'm not opposed to getting some A.J. Barner and Elijah Arroyo either. I know you like some Dalton Schultz there. And then, of course, at quarterback, it's Baker and Goff up top for me, but I'll have some Darnold and Stroud playing a bunch of lineups tonight.
Yeah, I'm actually going to rerun things because I lost Igbuka in my lineup set, so I need to don't do this shit again.
Oh, that's good.
I wish I had lost him on the slate too, but unfortunately not. It's fine. I know what I'm going to try to grab here because I already have a similar enough pool. But yeah, that's frustrating.
Fair. How does that even happen?
I don't know. Yeah, I thought I had it in the right tab. Maybe the other tab overrode it because if you have 2 tabs open with Sims, they can do that. Might be probably user error because I really don't build on stream that often. I try to build them in advance for every sport if I can. But today was not one of those days. Yeah,
it's never one of those days for me. I always say I'm going to, but then the Ibuka news came out and I was preparing for the show. And then like, what am I supposed to do? So yeah,
it's rude of him, really. I think we should put more accountability on rude players. And Ibuka should have been ruled in much earlier or not at all. I think would have been nice for all of us.
I could not agree more. So yeah, I'm almost there. We're getting there, as a matter of fact, and we should be fine. But I mean, we are up against it. Let me tell you, we are very much up against it.
We do have a super chat that we didn't know, and I'm actually curious if you have the answer because I could give my take on it. But could you explain the percent to first aspect in the Sims? I think talking about what Tom was putting in for the 15% for the Showdown, but he says he usually jacks it up, which shouldn't make me laugh because I'm an adult. But usually jack it up to 35-40%. Am I doing it right? I think my understanding of it, and Loughy may know more, is something that's actually inside and talks to the guys. My understanding is that it would sort of increase the variance you have because a lot more of the sim is then tied up into hitting first place. If you go to 15%, and I think Tom explained in that tweet as much as she could in one tweet, you get a little bit less variance on what you're trying to do. You get to hone in more on the projection-based side of that. And obviously, as one of the people funding a data team and creating it, I think Tom is willing to just ride with the data. So that would be my assumption. But I'm not, I don't know specifically.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're pretty close. It's just what it should be is the percentage to first of the contest you're playing. If it's $100,000 contest with 10,000 up top, you should be putting 10% to first, right? Because you're simulating the contest. So yeah, don't jack it up just for the sake of jacking it up. As Spag said, you're gonna end up getting like crazy, not crazy, but when it's 40% to first, that means everybody else that cashes is 60% of the total payout is going to them. 40% up top is a crazy high number, right? So it should be whatever the payout up top is in the contest that you're playing. Think of it like that.
And if you jack it up too much, you're going to go blind. That's always been one of the things
I've been close. All right. Appreciate you guys hanging out as always. I'm going to finish getting these lineups in. Have a great rest of the night. Ben and I will be back here for the first look tomorrow. Go check out Spags at Chris Spags and everything he's got going on. On top of that, remember the NBA sale is going on. You can sign up with any of our sportsbook partners and get the Sims free. And come hang out on Tails. Download the app as well. We'll see you back here for the next one. Bye-bye.